Hello, my name is Rich Howard, and this portion of the video review of the Ultra, their part number 44700, is going to discuss the installation aspect of this lock, physically attaching it to the door. So far we have gone over a review of the visual review with dimensional properties, how to rehand the lock should you need to. We have discussed the template itself and how to prep the door for the lock hardware. This is where you get the lock installed. So there's a link below this video to the installation instructions, and we have already accomplished step one, which is the rehanding of the lock should that be necessary. We have already accomplished most of step two, installing the lock. Apply the template to the door, measure, drill, etc., etc. Step 2, section C, is where we pick up. Place rubber escutcheon outside of door. Actually, that's not accurate. The first step is to install the latch bolt. The latch bolt will be, once the door is chiseled and mortised, the latch bolt goes in. Be sure to pre-drill those holes for the screws, and screws are included for those. A combination wood and machine thread will allow you to run that into any or either door type. That's an 832 flat undercut head and a complementary finish. Latch bolt's going to go in first, and that's common for all lock sets. Okay. Then you bring your rubber gasket. Your lock will sit down to it like that. Then all that's going to go through the door into your holes, and at this point it's going to look like that. Looking at the rest of step C to make sure I don't miss a portion of this. Okay. Second page of the installation instructions. Select the proper length of spindle and insert this into the lock from the select the proper length of spindle and insert this in the slot lock body from outside of door. For both series, spindle must be inserted to the slot of the outside lock body through the slot of latch bolt. What they're saying is this is already on the exterior. From the interior side is where you're going to insert one of the two tail pieces, and they're same piece of hardware, just different lengths. They are both marked, and let's look at the markings now. You're going to have the short one you really can't see what that says, for 1 inch to 1 3/8 doors. This, according to the installation instructions, will work only on a door that is step 2, section E. Use the 3-inch spindle for doors that are from 1 3/16 to 1 3/4 thick. And the 3 3/8 spindle for a door that's 1 3/4 to 2 inch, which is in conflict with what's written on here. I'm going to say that the stampings on the spindle will be more accurate. 1 inch to 1 3/8, use the short one. The longer one, which is probably what you're going to use, is going to be for they say 40 millimeter on there because I can't see if it's 1 3/16. 1 divided by 25.4 times 40 millimeter. That's 1.57. So 1 9/16 to 2 1/8. So you're probably going to use the longer spindle for your installation. They say that it's 3 3/8 in length. It's 3 7/16. The shorter spindle is 3 1/8. Probably going to use the long one. This is going to come in, and obviously I won't be able to really emulate this accurately with only 2 hands. From the inside of the hole, it's going to go through, and the latch bolt's going to be retracted when you're doing this installation, through there and then down into that slot, so that it's going to look like that. Okay? I've already made a mistake. Forgive me. This is set up for a right-hand door, so we have to be doing it properly for a right-hand door. And it'll look like that. That's the exterior of your right-hand door. Okay. Then, once you've got all that set, backing up a little bit, Section 2, Step D, select the proper length spindle. Section E is the same stuff we've just talked about. F, place rubber escutcheon on inside of door. Install the back plate to the door so the dot on the knob is aligned with the right dot, the right-hand side dot. Dot here, dot here. If you're doing the stock right-hand installation, you'll put that on the right-hand side before you insert it into the lock, because it's all timed at that point. The location of the thumb turn in the unlocked position is considered a timed piece of hardware. Like I said, it's not easy when you're doing it with only one hand. There we go. I did have that tailpiece in backwards, but you realize that the moment you try to put it together, because it just will not fit. Okay, here we go. Got that. And as I was following those installation instructions to align that handle with the dot on the right, I had stated that you place it on the right side, but you don't. You place it on the left side as shown in the drawing, and that's confirmed as accurate. It needs to look like that. Forgive me, it'll be pointed away from the door edge. You're looking at the inside of the door and it will travel this way. It's pointed away from the door edge, this being the door edge here. So when that dot is lined up properly, you will certainly be able to fully operate the lock, where you can lock and unlock it from the inside. Well, okay, so I don't like misspeaking, obviously, because you're watching this for help. Place rubber escutcheon on inside a door. Step F, F of Section 2. Install inside backplate to the door so dot mark on the knob is aligned with the right dot mark on the backplate. I think the term should be correct dot, not right dot, because I didn't look at the drawing and assumed it had to go to the right, and when I was testing it to show you, it didn't work, and then I analyzed it further and realized it must mean the correct dot, not the right dot. Okay, so when it's aligned correctly, that fully functions. I can turn that, lock it, unlock it. The outside, it's the I can always throw the lock, as I've demonstrated earlier. I can always throw it out. I can't unlock it, okay, when I've got my... That's not going to go. I had said earlier that your code is 1467X. That C in the front now, it comes in at this point of the installation, where the C is down here, and that's the clear button. That makes absolutely sure that the code is not retained. Throwing the lock does that. We've demonstrated that earlier, but it would be proper etiquette to always push the clear button, and that requires a lot of force to push, noticeably more than the other buttons. So it was 1467X. And at that point, oh, I think I pushed the wrong button. 1467X. That allows you to unlatch. I realized my arm was in the way. but I could throw that and unlock it, and then of course just relock it again. Okay. So that all works splendidly. We've gone through the installation instructions and determined where I made an initial verbal mistake, but then kind of weeded through the somewhat unclear installation instructions. We did not talk about the mortising of the strike. You're going to want to do that, of course, and the dimension given, the center line of the latch bolt, when measured, let's say, from the top of the door, is going to be X. This dimension will be the same dimension plus about 1/8 of an inch. Whatever the dimension is from the top of the door to the inside of the header, where you're going to take that tape measure and bump it up to the inside of the header, add that dimension, the margin between the top of the door and the inside of the header, it's generally 1/8 of an inch. Or, if you can measure to a solid floor, and you go 48 inch from the finished floor, that can be your center line for both pieces. But if you're going to hook the tape measure to the top of the door and then come down, be sure when you transfer that dimension to the frame, you're adding that margin. It's probably 1/8 of an inch. Section 2, Step 2, Section G, closed door. Decide the position where the spring latch applies to the face. We're not doing a spring latch, so that doesn't apply to us. Section 3, to operate the lock. The inside is always operable by turning the inside knob. You can always lock it and unlock it. We've demonstrated that. Now, if you're curious, the reason that works and is not related, because it's what might be referred to as a lazy spindle principle. Lazy spindle. That preparation that's inside of that receiver allows for the spindle to rotate in that fashion. Okay? But when everything is installed correctly and timed, that spindle cannot be turned because the lock chassis assembly is preventing it from turning. But on the inside, because you've got that amount of play inside of there, that will always allow the inside to work, because it's what's called a lazy tailpiece. I don't know if it's properly called lazy on this, but the concept would be considered a lazy tailpiece, where you can throw a deadbolt either way and be able to take the key out in a traditional deadbolt and make that all work for you. Okay. Lazy tailpiece, I may have moved off a little bit quick on that. Okay, moved off of the strike. The size we demonstrated earlier, the thickness of this, and whether or not you're going to have a dust box that will alter the thickness of what you're dealing with. But this measures 50 thousandths, so not even a 1/16 of an inch. So you'll mortise that and chisel it accordingly. The Section 3, to operate the lock, the inside is always operable. We discussed that with the lazy principle. To enter lock, push the set of codes on buttons and turn the outside knob. If you reset the code, refer to the attached sheet, How to Reset Code. To lock, simply close the door. If it's a spring latch, which this one is not, it'll automatically lock. If it's a deadbolt, you have to turn the thumb turn. Okay. The remark at the very bottom of the installation instructions tells you to always press the C or clear button. Okay. I find that throwing the bolt means you can't go back at all. So the code is technically clear, although sometimes you'll encounter by re-entering the code that it doesn't work the first time, but entering clear, listen for a click. You may have heard that click in the microphone. That's the resetting or the clearing of the code is what that does. 1, 4, 6, 7, X allows that to turn. Okay. Push clear every time after you use it, and probably every time before you use it. If you push clear when you lock the door and don't push clear when you come back, and you discover that entering the code doesn't work, for sure someone's pushed some of the buttons would be what that would mean. At least to me, that's what it would mean. The rest of the installation instructions, what we've not discussed, is the screws to hold the lock body together, the screws to hold the latch bolt in, Then we have a couple of other pieces I want to quickly review to make sure we've not missed anything. And then in conclusion, there are two pieces that are in the lock package that thread to the backside lugs, the hex lugs, and they certainly thread in. I can't think of a use for them other than allowing you to perhaps put the lock into the door so that it doesn't fall out on you. Maybe? I don't really know what those are for. I've not encountered these pieces before. It's not impossible that there are pieces sent that are not needed whatsoever, but that's quite unusual, and I see no reference to them anywhere inside of the installation instructions. I have, of course, stumbled through this process without realizing, because it's not directly indicated, or perhaps that it is, what these are for. These pieces must be installed. They are going to thread into the exterior chassis and must be done very early on. Like that. That is going to allow you to have a very reliable installation of the latch bolt physically not moving at all in the installation. Okay. Works very nice, the combination. It's not retracting the latch bolt naturally because there's no tail piece. But I'm going to demonstrate that to you now just so that we can take a look at it. Clear 1467X. Okay. Those pins are going to keep that latch bolt real secure in the edge of the door. You absolutely want to have those. And I've either missed the language on there. It's in one image in the bottom of page 1, right-hand side. It does show that pin installed, but it's not indicated anywhere. And I ought to have audited all of the pieces and done a reality check prior to installing, but I did not expect to have pieces left over. And when this ships to the client, I'm going to leave those in there. And there is revealed why you need that 1 9/16 of an inch hole. That's why it's revealed. I had read the installation instructions. I had discovered that the hole seemed far too large, but I failed to investigate that fully. That's why you need that 1 9/16 hole. That's what these two brass pins indeed are for. And if you have installed the lock without them, and you've got them left over, which you will, take everything off, put those back in, put those down in there, and reinstall. Latch bolt won't have to come out. That's going to keep it real straight. Okay, the final section of this will be how to change the code, the last portion.